Science Beetle.
Welcome back, students. In this lesson, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and practice some significant figure problems. I've already gone ahead and written the rules for you here at the very top, so there's no need to write them down, but they are there for reference, so if you need to refer to them, perfect, just go ahead and do so. So let's just dive right in and let's get some problems going, okay? And so let's say that we have this problem here, 0.214, and we got to figure out how many significant digits do we have. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to designate over here the significant digit count, and just put it over here on the very end just so that we know, okay, as we go through, and I'll erase it as we go through, but that way we know what the digit count is. And so in fact, why don't we just put it here instead. And so the significant digit count is going to be right there. So if we look at this number here and we try to figure out how many significant digits we've got, let's start with rule number 1. So all non-zero numbers are significant. So we know that the 2 is significant, the 1 is significant, and the 4 is significant. So far our number is going to be 3. So we got 1, 2, 3. And any zeros between two significant figures, well, there are no zeros. The only between significant figures, the only zero that we do have is actually at the front. So we know that rule number 2 doesn't really apply. And any zero at the end of a number, well, there are no zeros at the end, so rule number 3 really does not apply either. But if we look at number 4 does apply. So any zero to the left of the first significant figure. So the first significant figure in this problem is going to be 2. So that means that any zero to the left, and that's going to be this number here, is significant, is not going to be significant. So any zero to the left of the first significant digit is not significant. So this number here, the 0, is not significant. So that means that our total count here is going to remain 3. Okay? And so let's go ahead and try a different problem. And so let's say that we have this number here, 101. Again, starting off with rule number 1, we know that the 1 is significant on this side and the other 1 is significant. Any zero between two significant figures is also significant. Since the 1 is between two significant figures, it's in the middle. Since the 0 is between two significant figures, the 0 is also significant. So that means that our total count here for significant digits is going to be 3. Okay, let's go and try a different problem just for practice. Let's say that you have some problems kind of like 3.21 times 10 to the positive 2. And so when you see numbers like this, one thing that I should identify is that this particular format here is called scientific notation. Okay? And essentially this is just a shorthand version of another number. Now I'm not going to show you what that number is at this point simply because I want to drive the point home with a significant figure. Sorry about that. And so let's go ahead and do that. So let me erase this thing at the bottom and let's figure out how many significant figures we have. In order to answer this particular type of problem, the first thing that we need to do is, see this area right here, we're just going to ignore for now. We don't pay attention to that. The only part that we want to pay attention to is the 3.21. Let me just write that down here, 3.21. The other stuff's important, but not for this particular problem, not with respect to scientific notation. And so, again, we look at the rules. Rule number 1 says that all non-zeros are significant, so we know that the 3 is going to be significant, the 2 significant, and the 1 significant. Therefore, for this particular problem, our total significant digit count is going to be 3. And so that's important because the other way that we could have written this particular problem could have been a different way. So let me show you what that looks like. And so let me just rewrite the whole thing. And so the problem here was 3.21 times 10 to the positive 2. And so when we write the problem like this, we know that the significant count here is going to be 3, okay? But when we write the problem the way it really should be in terms of longhand or decimal point, full decimal point, essentially we need to write it a different way. And so this is the number that we start off with, but here we're saying that it has a positive 2. It has an exponent to the second power. So that means that we need to shift over the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. So there's 1 and 2. And when we do that, this number then essentially becomes 321 decimal at the end. Once we do this, the decimal count, we look at the rules. all non-zeros are considered significant, so the 3 significant, the 2 significant, and the 1 significant. So in this particular case, this one here, 2, would also have a significant count of 3. All right? But what if our number here was slightly different? What if instead of 3.21, let's say that we had 3.210. Okay. Would that make any difference? Well, probably. If we're looking at the number this way, the numbers that we need to look at here are these 4. And so we know that the 3 is significant, the 2 is significant. We also know the 1 is significant because of rule number 1. But if we look at number 2, it really doesn't apply because the only 0 we have is at the end. So the rule that really does apply in this particular case is going to be rule number 3. Any 0 at the end of a number is significant only if there is a decimal present. Since we see the decimal present, we see the decimal present right there. Therefore, because it is present, that means that this 0 at the end is also significant. So the count here is going to be 4. Okay. But remember, there is another way to write this particular problem, and let's go ahead and write that down. We could also have written this problem as a 3, 2, 1, 0, moving the decimal point over 1, 2, essentially converting this number to 321.0. If we wrote it in this manner, and I'm going to kind of put it in a box here. If we wrote it like this, we know that the 3 is significant, the 2 is significant, the 1 is significant, but because the decimal point is now present, we now can look at rule number 3 and say that the 0 at the very end is also significant because there's a decimal present. So the count here becomes a 4. And so there's really no difference at this point. But what if I would have written this number instead of 321.0, what if I wrote the number as a 321 as opposed to 321.0? Well, this particular number is going to have 1, 2, 3 significant figures, and the 321.0 is going to have 1, 2, 3, and the 0 counts because of the decimal, so that's going to be a significant count as 4. So it's very important that you look at these numbers with the decimal point because the decimal point really does make a difference. Okay, so let's look at a couple more and see if we can come up with some problems. Now go ahead and pause this as I work through some of the problems. Go ahead and pause it to see if you can come up with the right answer. So let me just write some numbers here, and you tell me what they're going to be. All right, so if we take the first number here, the significant figure is, according to rule number 1, all non-zeros are significant. We've got a count of 1. So here's the significant figure count for this problem. What about the second problem, 1.0? Well, we know that the 1 is significant, that's for sure. But because of rule number 3, since it's at 0 and there is a decimal point present, the 0 counts as a significant value. So the significant value count here is going to be 2. How about the third problem here, which is going to be the 1, 0. So let me just show you there, right there. And so that problem, well, we know that the 1 is significant, but the 0, there is no decimal present. So in this particular case, the 0 does not count. So the significant count for that problem is going to be 1. And the last problem here, 1,000.0. Well, we know that the 1 is significant. We know that because of the decimal, the number at the very end is significant. And we also know that these numbers are also going to be significant simply because of the presence of that decimal point. Okay, so we got that one present, that one present, that one present. So the significant count here is going to be a count of 5. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for you for some examples. There are others, and hopefully we'll provide that in the next lesson, maybe another significant figures part 3, so that you can get some more practice with some longer numbers. Okay, until then, go ahead and subscribe us, and we'll see you soon.